One day we're going to become a nice socialist utopia and everything's going to be all right. We're all going to be around the bonfire, singing Kumbaya, passing around plant-based meats, and just having a great time. It's all going to be all right, ladies and gentlemen. And I forgot, you're going to be driving around your nice electric car with no problem because everyone in the U.S. is going to get one. We're going to be a socialist utopia. Everyone in the U.S. is going to get an electric car, okay? And you're not going to have to pay an electric bill. And you're going to be able to go wherever you want. Okay, so don't worry about it. Hello, YouTubers. Alaska Prepper here. Well, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to one of our 2 news videos of the week. For those of you that don't know, I drop a consolidated news video on Wednesday and on Sunday. It used to be Tuesday and Saturday, but I went ahead and shifted it to the right by 1 day on each occasion. And ladies and gentlemen, I have so much to talk about on this video that is going to be kind of a speed round. So if you want to revisit anything that I covered, I will leave a link for everything that we talk about today, and I will also put chapters on this video so that you can skip from subject to subject in case there's one that you just don't care about. But the first thing that I want to talk about is one that I'm going to spend a little bit more time on, and that's something that I've been warning about for a couple of years now. I remember the first video that I did about this. It went something like this, the title: when you hear the word price controls being talked about in the mainstream media or by government pundits, it's time to worry, and it's time to make sure that you get as best prepped as you can and that you fill in the gaps as much as you can, because price controls will only do one thing. Well, they'll do a couple of things. They'll make things that you want to buy, things that you need to live, rice, beans, flour, butter, etc., etc. It will make them much more expensive. And the reason why is because if your input costs go up, you have to increase the prices of the things that you're selling, or else you'll be selling them at a loss, and then you won't be in business too long. Well, when price controls are put in place and they make businesses sell something for this price and this price alone, eventually they won't be able to sell it, and they'll go out of business, making that thing that you want to buy even more expensive and making it available pretty much only in the black market. It's happened throughout history, and it will happen again. And if you are not prepared, just talk to someone who's moved here and had lived a good while, like in Cuba or Venezuela, where governments put price control, and many of the things that they need to live on an everyday basis, they have to buy in the black market, and they have to pay a lot more for it than what they could if they were able to buy it. Because you see, when price controls are implemented, some people will be able to buy some of those items at that price, but not nearly enough will be available for the entire population. So most that will want that item will either go without or will have to pay a lot more. Biden announces a strike force, ladies and gentlemen, to crack down on unfair and illegal prices. What this is doing, it is taking away our ability to have a free market. Those of you that agree with this on its face value really need to understand what this is going to do to your standard of living. And you have to understand that the reason why they're doing this is to save face with the people, wanting to make you believe that they're trying to fix something that they themselves broke. The reason that prices are so high, ladies and gentlemen, is because of monetary and fiscal policy. Fiscal policy means that the government spends way too much than what it brings in. Monetary policy means that the Federal Reserve is more than happy to continue to print money out of thin air and allow the government to spend it into the economy, making the inflation of that money in the economy a lot higher, therefore making prices go up. You have to understand what this means before you agree with price controls, because it is you, the average working American, that's going to pay the price. It's not these people sitting on Capitol Hill. A new panel will target businesses when they try to rip off Americans, the Biden administration says. Who do you really think is ripping you off? Do you know what inflation is? Inflation is a hidden tax that everybody pays, with the exception of those that are already wealthy that own mainly assets. Let me explain something to you really quick, how it is that inflation hurts the working man, the person that goes out and earns a wage or a salary, instead of hurting the people that are rich. If you earn a wage or a salary, more than likely here in the United States at least, once you get paid, that money's gone. That money's already earmarked for rent, for a car payment, for the electric bill, for a mortgage if you're lucky enough to afford a mortgage, for food, for anything, right? For living. It's already earmarked for living. And you're just hoping that you have enough money to last a month so that you can start the next month with a fresh slate. You don't really own assets. If you own an asset, it may be the equity that you own in a home, or maybe a little bit of equity that you own in a vehicle that maybe has been paid off for a while, etc. But the people that really own assets are rich people. Now, let me ask you, what is it that goes up in price when inflation strikes? What goes up in price the most? Look at what's been going up in price the most lately. Houses, right? Paintings, Bitcoin, the stock market, things that a lot of average Americans don't own. Why? Because they can't afford it. But when you see Jamie Dimon, when you see Mark Zuckerberg, when you see fill in the blank, Bezos, when you see this other billionaire, when you see them have money, sell their stocks, they take their money and they buy assets with it. They don't just park it in savings. They buy assets because when inflation hits, it's assets that become more nominally higher priced. And the things that you need to live, since you can't buy assets, also get higher in price, making you poor. So inflation makes the rich richer and it makes the poor poorer. And now they want to do price controls to make it even more difficult for you, the working man, to get what you need to live. Now, ladies and gentlemen, this is the only article in which I'm going to go this in depth, okay? Let's see. It says here that even as prices have come down on important items like a gallon of milk and a dozen eggs, some corporations are not passing those savings on to consumers. Instead, some corporations are tacking on extra fees, hiding costs, and sometimes even breaking the law. It is not for the government to tell any business what they can charge. It is for the free market. So, for example, let's say that you went to grocery store A and they were selling a gallon of milk for $10 a gallon right now, today. And you were like, wait a minute, this is ridiculous. That's what I would say. I'd be like, this is ridiculous. I can go to Costco and get 2 gallons of milk for like $9 for less than what I'm paying for this. What would you do? You would do what the free market dictates that you would do. You would go to Costco and get 2 1-gallons for $9 and change instead of paying $10 for 1 gallon at grocery store A. That's the free market. The government has no business putting itself in the free market. Why? Because it only allows those businesses that it wants to win to win. Take a look at what happened in California with, I believe it was Panera, right? And the governor, Newsom. The governor there in California, they passed a law that said that the minimum wage had to go up. I think it's to $20. That the minimum wage has to go up to $20. And that law has passed already, right? I believe it has. Correct me if I'm wrong. But guess who didn't have to bring their minimum wage up to $20? Panera. Why? Because they donated to him. They as a business don't have to abide by the law that was passed for everyone else. So when you have price controls, the government gets to decide what business wins and what business loses. And that's not a free market. You know who the free market is the best thing for? It's the best thing for you, the consumer. Because with competition, ladies and gentlemen, the consumer always wins. There's always going to be someone out there trying to hustle, and trying to get in the game and say, man, if I can just offer this for a little bit cheaper, I can, overcome my competitor and I can build my business bigger. There's always going to be someone doing that. But with the government getting involved and not allowing competition, that will die, and it will be you, the consumer, that pays the price. It says here that Biden is fed up with corporate practices that unfairly raise costs for consumers. And he's asking that action be taken. Well, maybe the government ought to take a little bit of action and stop spending so much money and getting us into so much debt and creating the inflation that they have for the past several years, if not decades. The Biden administration has consistently criticized industry monopolies in the U.S., where a handful of companies. I'm going to stop. I'll leave the link for this because this is just nonsense. And this is what it's all about. I recommend that you come and visit this article right here, because for socialists and communists, it doesn't matter if it works. What matters is power. And that's exactly what price controls will do. It will give government even more power over those industries that we rely on to support us and provide us with the things that we need to live everyday life. And ladies and gentlemen, this article is pretty interesting. This author is kind of like trying to show how a lot of people are going against socialism, talking against socialism like myself here, but they really don't go through all of the fundamentals. And this is a pretty long article, so come back and take a look at it because the conclusion is great. Spoiler alert, I'm going to tell you what the conclusion of this author is. But it says here that it goes something like this, meaning that podcasters talking about how bad socialism is, that it's never worked. Why is it still a thing, right? When are they going to realize that it doesn't work and drop it? Right, so he pretty much saying that that's pretty much what people are saying. And it's true. That's what I say. I say socialism doesn't work because of this or that, but I don't go into the intricacies of why it doesn't work. And the reason that is, if I'm being truthful, is because most people don't have that long of an attention span. That's why I say if you're serious about learning more about it, come to this article and read it for yourselves. But the conclusion is this. And they say here that once you give it its intellectual due, then you can call it what it is, an evil concept on its face that has no place amongst the human species. It's been tried and it's failed every time. And no, it's not because it hasn't been done right. It's because it's not part of human nature. It will never work. And this, in my opinion, is why the government has to turn to socialism, why it has to turn to price controls, why it has to control every part of your life. Because it's not Bitcoin that's killing the dollar. It's not gold that's killing the dollar. It's not the BRICS nations that's killing the dollar. It's the government itself that's killing the dollar. Just take a look at the actions that it has taken in the last several years. The U.S. national debt in June of last year was just 32 trillion. And then in September of last year, it went up to 33 trillion. And then now it's at 34 trillion, and every 100 days is going up by a trillion. Our interest payments on the debt here, probably within a year or so, will be higher than what we spend on all of our defense spending every year. And granted, what we spend on defense, ladies and gentlemen, is equivalent to more than the next 10 highest spending countries in the world. So it's not like we pay a little bit on interest. We pay an awful lot, and it's only going to continue to get higher. I hope you're all getting prepared. And what are they going to do next? Put price controls on homes? Ladies and gentlemen, if you want to live in a crappy home for the rest of your life, go ahead and let them start this price control things, because it's only going to go ahead and continue on aside from just consumer items. It'll be on everything, and then we will finally have that socialist utopia that so many are asking for. The income needed to afford a home in the U.S. has soared by 80%. Has your income soared by 80% in the last 3 to 4 years? According to Zillow, the income needed to comfortably afford a home in the U.S. has leaped 80% since 2020, far exceeding what the BLS report has been a 23% increase in median household income over the same period. Are you starting to get it now? It's not the fault of corporations, right? Who's selling these homes? Why are these homes so much more expensive that you now need an income that's almost twice of what it used to be in order for you to just qualify to owe money to an institution for the next 30 years? Whose fault is it really, ladies and gentlemen? Is it your fault? I don't think so. I think that the fault of this is the government allowing all of the inflation that has taken place, that has reduced your standard of living to a point where you can't even afford to buy a house because your income just won't support the math that is required to apply for a loan or to qualify for a loan. The Supreme Court temporarily blocks Texas illegal immigration law. I say that Texas should just continue to do what they need to do, and the heck with what the Supreme Court says. You know why? Because there comes a time in the history of a nation that someone has to take a stand, no matter what. The U.S. Supreme Court imposed a temporary pause on the enforcement of Texas immigration law on Monday, which would have granted state law enforcement powers to arrest and detain people they suspect of entering the country illegally. You know what I say? I say just take them, push them back to the other side. That's what we have to do. It is now survival. This is now something to do with the survival of our nation. We cannot allow all of these illegal immigrants to come in through our southern border, not having them vetted, not knowing who they are or what harm they pose to these United States of America and we the people within it. We can't allow it to continue to happen. Who's paying for all of these people to be flown in by the Biden administration? 320,000 illegals into the United States have been flown in by this administration. Who's paying for this, ladies and gentlemen? You're paying for it. That's who's paying for it. Not only are you paying for it with higher taxes, with higher prices, with less housing, but you're also paying for it with the price that comes along with human suffering. Because as soon as you realize that this nation has forsaken the people that it's sent to fight its wars, you'll soon realize that it will forsake you and has forsaken you as well. Unfortunately, that is. We can still fix this as a nation, but there's going to be a lot of suffering. Homelessness rises among U.S. vets for the first time in 12 years as the immigration crisis escalates. Why? Because we're taking the beds that would have gone to the homeless veterans and giving it to people whose first act as entering into this country was one that was unlawful. Imagine that. And they were interviewing a lady called Miss Monroe, and she says, I've been down to the border. Buses pull up and illegal migrants are given food, a cell phone, and a plane ticket. And then going up to the top, it says, what we are saying to our homeless veterans is that we as a country don't care. It's no wonder why recruiting is down by 20%. They are taking away housing and resources from veterans, and the American people are the victims. Not only the American people, believe it or not, ladies and gentlemen, there is room for empathy in what is called the most dangerous journey. What Central American migrants face when they try to cross the border, and there's only one thing that I want to leave impressed in your mind from this article, and it's this. 6 in 10 women and girls are abused on the journey. I will try to watch my words, but you'll be able to read it yourselves. Kidnapping for ransom isn't the only risk, they say, to crossing the border illegally. Health professional report that as many as, listen to this, for those of you that are okay with our border being open, listen to this. 6 in 10 women and girls are abused on the journey. And activists repeatedly raise concerns that abducted women and girls are vulnerable to trafficking. 6 in 10, 60%, that is on you. That is on the person that says, oh, they're just looking for a better life. That is on the person that says, oh, they're asylum seekers. At the same time, they say they're just looking for a better life. Ladies and gentlemen, I would say that 99%, if not more than the people that are crossing the borders are not asylum seekers. They are people that want to do harm to we the people in the United States of America. Number one, those that we aren't catching, by the way, because they're just letting them go. Right? Number two, it's people that are looking for a better life as far as economics go. They're economic migrants. They're not asylum seekers. They're not going through 6 different countries to get to this one because they're afraid of of the country they live in. If they were so afraid of the country they live in, then they would have just stopped at the first country that they got to, so that their lives would not be at risk. So stop lying to yourself and stop lying to everyone else that they're asylum seekers. They're not. So it's on you. It's on you that 6 in 10 women and girls have that done to them just so that they can come into this country unlawfully and then be trafficked and then be put into a sweatshop somewhere in some little corner in a crowded city somewhere. It's on you, ladies and gentlemen, because a lot of Americans don't want this to be happening. AP, why is it important to you that gangs overrun Haiti's 2 largest prisons, freeing nearly 4,000 criminals, as U.S. urges all Americans to exit Haiti? Why is that so important? Why are you going over this article? Where do you think they're going, ladies and gentlemen? It's what we just talked about. The human trafficking crisis and border insecurity. And of course, this is a huge failure. And I would have to say it's not even a failure. This has been constructed. They wanted this to happen. They're allowing it to happen, even though they know that it is the American people, their constituents, that are going to be doing the suffering. But it's okay. One day we're going to become a nice socialist utopia and everything's going to be all right. We're all going to be around the bonfire, singing Kumbaya, passing around plant-based meats, and just having a great time. It's all going to be all right, ladies and gentlemen. And oh, and I forgot, you're going to be driving around your nice electric car with no problem, because everyone in the U.S. is going to get one. We're going to be a socialist utopia. Everyone in the U.S. is going to get an electric car, okay? And you're not going to have to pay an electric bill. And you're going to be able to go wherever you want. Okay, so don't worry about it. Biden's administration has been complicit in downplaying the severity of the crisis and silencing dissenting voices by censoring Border Patrol agents and suppressing information about the true extent of the trafficking epidemic. And this is why social media needs to be. This is why there needs to be voices on social media. And I have to say that maybe I don't get it right all the times. Most of what I do is I read what's going on in the world, especially in this country, and I put in my 2 cents. And sometimes I could be wrong, but that's okay. I would rather be wrong in an honest way than to lie to you like the social media does in an intentional way. Biden has sought to conceal the failures of his administration and evade accountability. This lack of transparency and accountability only serves to enable perpetrators the cycle of exploitation. And that's exactly what they do. Do you think that these human traffickers down south of the border are not jumping up and down for joy, knowing that they're making billions of dollars a year off of the policies of this administration? And to finish it off, ladies and gentlemen, continue to prepare. Texas wildfires continue to devastate the beef supply. If you eat beef, get it now, put it away. Pressure can it. And if you've never had pressure can beef, it is delicious. If you have a freeze dry it, etc., etc. It's not intended. Listen, preparations aren't intended to get you through forever. There's something that will supplement preparations. Let's talk about food. It's something that you have that can supplement what you can still get. All right. Even though we had 10,000 cows here that were lost in Texas due to the wildfires and the heat, you can still get beef. Just it's going to be more expensive once this hits the supply chain. But your preps are intended to supplement what you cannot get at a certain time. We're going to go into a time where maybe 1 week rice will be available, but beans won't. Maybe the next week, rice won't be available, but beans will, and maybe butter will, etc. So if you have preps on those things that you use on a regular basis, it won't be as impactful on you because you'll still be able to get it. And then the next time that's available, if you're able to stock up on it because there's no price controls, then you can. The largest wildfire in Texas history has burned down approximately 500 structures and at least 1,700 square miles in the Texas Panhandle and neighboring areas. The Texas Agricultural Commissioner has estimated that 10,000 cattle have been killed in the fires. This is likely going to harm the beef supply for a few years as ranchers try to rebuild. And that seems to be the same old story that we've been replaying for the last few years when it comes to the not only beef industry, but the meat industry altogether. So you can see that the prices of meats altogether are going to rise. Well, AP, how is it that the price of chicken or pork will rise just because the price of beef will rise? Well, because as the price of beef rises, because it's the meat that's being the most impacted at a certain time, then some people that eat a lot of beef, then maybe they'll be kicked out of that beef eating because the price is so high, right? So now instead of eating beef 3 or 4 times a week, they'll maybe only eat it twice a week because that's all they can afford. But what are they going to substitute those other 2 days that they're now not eating beef? They're probably going to go to pork or to chicken. So then you're going to have a larger supply of people eating pork and buying pork or chicken, which is going to do what? It's going to deplete the supply, bring up the price. It's just basic economics, ladies and gentlemen. I know this was a little bit of a longer video, but I really had a lot of news to get through. If you are still here, thank you very much for all of your support. If you want to support what I do, take a look at my website. It has all of the partners of the Alaska Prepper community, and a lot of those have coupons that come with like 20% off, 10% off, 5% off. But it's all things that I've tried, that I recommend, and people that I think that are good behind the actual product. So go check it out. And ladies and gentlemen, again, thank you so much for all of your support. God bless every one of you. Continue to prepare. Don't stop, because it's obvious that things just are not getting any better, at least anytime soon. God bless America. I'm Alaska Prepper. I'm out.